Welcome to the Published Author Podcast, where we help entrepreneurs learn how to write a book and leverage it to grow their business and make an impact. I'm your host, Josh Steimle. Today, my guest is Curt Mercadante. Curt helps entrepreneurs and wantrepreneurs design, manifest, and grow their freedom businesses. For 25 years, he's counseled small businesses, entrepreneurs, as well as some of the largest corporations and associations in the country. He's built 3 profitable businesses, including a 7-figure PR and ad agency. He's a Gallup certified strengths trainer, a certified human behavior consultant, and he's author of the best-selling book, 5 Pillars of the Freedom Lifestyle. Curt, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Josh. It's been a pleasure. We've known each other online for a little while now, so it's great to actually sort of meet in person.
Yeah, I've been following you for years. I don't know how it started. I think we're just kind of part of the same group of people that are into marketing and conferences or something. But I know I've seen you around for a long time. We're finally getting to really chat here in person, sort of. But give us some of your background for those out there who haven't heard of you before. Where do you come from? What's your entrepreneurial background?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. And I think we first met in quotes on LinkedIn. And then I've been kind of had a love affair on and off with Twitter. And I had a bunch of followers. I ditched Twitter. I came back and I left and I came back. And the next thing I know, Josh has a blue check mark. It's like amazing, you know? Well,
they're handing them out to anybody these days.
And taking them away. So, we're almost at the 4-year anniversary where I woke up on a Tuesday morning. It was Thanksgiving weekend. And I had built a 7-figure PR and ad agency and scaled it. And, but I had about 8 or 9 years of denial and anxiety attacks and poor health and not being the best husband and the best father. And I woke up on that Tuesday morning and I asked myself a question. I said, there's that god-awful meeting next week that we had this 8-hour planning session. I said, if my plane goes down to or from that meeting, is it worth it? And I said, no. And so I told my wife that I'm shutting it down. She said, it's about time, because she knew just mentally, physically, spiritually, I was just crushing myself, traveling all the time. And I fired all my clients on that day, shut it down, brought my revenue down to 0 and started my current company, which is a speaking, training, coaching company. Along with that other agency, I had built another very successful digital media publishing company as well, and started over. And, I'm not that smart of a guy, but I seem to be able to create businesses that make money and sell. And now I'm doing one that gives me freedom and fulfillment. And I use the examples I learned over the 14 years of that agency of what's really important, the trial and error of how you define success based on what you think it's supposed to be, which may just be dollars and cents, which, hey, I'm a free market capitalist, right? But when you attach your meaning to that, sometimes you spend your life playing defense to defend what you have and hoard what you have. And you spend your life waiting till you're 59 and a half and you can touch your SEP or your IRA or your 401k, or waiting till 65 for work-life balance and the life part to balance out. And so I used all those lessons to write my book, 5 Pillars of the Freedom Lifestyle. And there's 5 simple lessons in there of what you can bring to bear to manifest, to build freedom. The first one is unleash your superpowers. 2 is clearly define a vision for your life, so you have a guiding star. 3 is alignment, not balance, but what does alignment look like for you when your work, your family, and yourself are in alignment? The next one is outcomes. So you take that life you design and then you reverse engineer it so that every year, every month, every week, every day, the key outcomes you need to achieve to get where you want to go. So you're not just throwing stuff against the wall to see what sticks. And then the 5th one is do it in a state of flow. So you get in a state of flow instead of a state of grind. And all those I've found and worked with my clients to find the same thing, get you in a way where you can be successful. Yeah, you can have the money, but you're doing it where you can be a good father or mother. You can be a good parent. You can be a good spouse or partner. And you can enjoy life and spend your life living instead of waiting, which I think over the last 2 years, there's a lot of people who've woken up to the fact that living isn't just about the 1.5-hour commute and the water cooler chat and getting yelled at by a boss. And quite honestly, that's why I think, 4 or 5 million people have resigned, because they're like, I'd rather have some enjoyment in my life rather than wait till 65.
And this isn't just lip service for you. I mean, you're living this, right?
Yeah, in addition to that, 4 years ago, it's been a big journey since then. I mean, we've traveled to Europe several times. We were going to travel more, and then, the recent unpleasantness occurred over the last 2 years. But in the middle of it, we were living in Charleston, South Carolina for 7 years, and generally speaking, we don't like being told what to do, but they closed down the parks and the beaches, and we weren't allowed to do stuff. And our kid was in an acting class, and they wouldn't let him do that. And then we had some other unpleasantness, all the stuff that happened last summer in Charleston, and outside people came and tried to literally burn down the city. And I'm like, you know what? Let's just get up and go. So we sold our house. At one point that was going to be our forever home. We said, no, we sold our house, and we sold, in quotes, / donated basically everything we own that didn't fit into our minivan or a 5-foot storage container, and took our 4 kids. We have our daughter's 15, and then our sons are 13, 10, and 7. And we've been traveling the country since September of 2020. We've been in the mountains, the beaches, back to the beaches again. We've been in the desert, and we came into Sedona, Arizona, loved it. The energy here is incredible. We've found a state of flow here that we've never found anywhere else. So now we're going to hang out here for a while.
Cool. So when you wrote the book, obviously you had a mission in mind. You wanted to get this message out there. Was it also something that was factoring into your business and your speaking that you needed for those reasons as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very pragmatic, and, it's the outcomes, what I want to do. So I knew I didn't want to be I'd be fine. It's not that I didn't want to be it, but I wasn't like going to the book, I'm going to get rich off writing a book. I was very intentional of thought leadership, build the brand, use it to get speaking gigs and clients. And even today, so the book was published in 2019. I have a boot camp called the Freedom Business Blueprint Bootcamp, in which we take the pillars and use them for people who are either entrepreneurs who built a prison instead of a business, or entrepreneurs who've been kind of hanging out with their side hustle for 4 years and was like, I don't know what to do next. So we design it from the ground up using the principles in the book.
Quick break here. Are you an entrepreneur? Do you want to write a book that will help you grow your business? Visit publishedauthor.com, where we have programs to fit every budget, programs that will help you write and publish your book in as little as 90 days, starting at just $39 per month. Or, if you're too busy to write your book, we'll interview you and then write and publish your book for you. Don't let the valuable knowledge and experience you have go to waste. Head on over to publishedauthor.com to get the help you need to become a published author. You've already waited long enough. Do it today. Now, back to the show. So now you had some experience with writing and producing content before you wrote the book. Did you feel pretty confident going into it, or how challenging was it going through the process of writing this book?
Yeah, I was pretty consistent with content. I haven't missed a day of at least 2 posts a day on LinkedIn for 4 years. And which is why I'm worn out on Twitter. I can't do the 12, 13 a day, and what I did is I decided, I don't know the exact timeline, but I decided sometime before I'm going to write some LinkedIn articles, but kind of write my book through LinkedIn articles, at least the principles, et cetera. And so I started doing that maybe in the summer or the fall. And then like around December, January, I'm like, okay, by March, I want the manuscript. And so what I started doing was looking back at my past writings, taking a lot of those, organizing them into something that made sense, really came up with the 5 pillars of, okay, organizing that into a kind of process that can be packaged, easily understood. And then what I did was I'm very good at time blocking. So Monday and Friday, I'm no longer taking any calls or working with any clients. It's writing day. Now, I wouldn't write all day, but what I wouldn't do is cheat with, I'm going to take a call here and there. I'd do meditation in the morning. I'd work out in the morning. I'd do that. And then I would write. And then after that, my reward was family time, go do whatever I want. But I take about 2 hours on a Friday, 2 hours on a Monday. Some of it was organizing content I had. Some of it was writing from scratch. And just that systematic approach it was like, boom, I had a book. And then I had met an editor at a conference. She's up in New England. I said, "Hey, dude, oh yeah, here we did the process." And next thing you know, it was a very, I got in a state of flow in writing it versus, oh my gosh, I got a deadline and I got to write 1,000 pages or 1,000 pages. I got to write 1,000 words today or 3,000 tomorrow. It was just Monday, Friday. And you know what, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I just didn't even worry about it. I didn't even think about it. And if I had an idea, I'd throw it in a folder for the book, but I only focused Monday, Friday on writing that book. And before you knew it, it was like, it's done.
It's always interesting to hear the different systems people set up to get their book done. So you mentioned writing on LinkedIn and doing LinkedIn articles. Did you write your entire book in LinkedIn articles, or was that just at the beginning or parts of it? Or
yeah, no, it wasn't the entire piece. Actually, another big piece, kind of the first part of the book was a combo of some LinkedIn articles, and you know, the LinkedIn articles would get out my thoughts, but it was only 500 words, right? Or 600 words. So then I would expand on that and maybe turn that into a chapter. I also, I had a podcast at the time called Freedom Mindset Radio, and I was interviewing a number of people, and they told stories that weaved into thematically what I wanted to explain with the book. So I had that whole bank of interviews. And as I would expand on the topics and get into these topics, I would go back and say, oh, wow, I interviewed so-and-so about that. This would make a great story for the book. So then I used their stories, and I had the transcripts from the podcast to use there. And it was like I had done the interviews, but it was like I had interviewed them for the book. And so I put that in there. So I had this ready-made content for it. And I think a lot of people probably do. You know, when I do a boot camp that's really about branding and sales, and one of the things and the biggest challenge is, what you've posted twice a day for 4 years. Like, where do you find your content? And I go back to, you know, Gary Vee. Half the stuff I can take, half the stuff I can't take from Gary Vee. But one of the things he says that's true is document, don't create. Like, we have conversations each day, we have life experiences. We have conversations with potential clients. We have conversations on podcasts. We have conversations with existing clients. I tell people, like, if an existing client is having a challenge or a problem, like, extrapolate that out. There might be another 10,000 of your ideal clients who are having the same problem. So document it and use it as a post. You don't have to use their name. It's the same with a book. Things are going on where you just got to bring them in, right? Put them on paper. Before you know it, you realize, wow, that thematically, I've got a book here. Thematically, I have content for 2 months to put on social media to build my brand. So you don't have to be a creative genius. Just document what's going on in your life.
when you were writing your book, who are you thinking of reading the book? Who was the target audience?
Yeah, at the time, it really was, and I coached some women, but it really was men, 45 to 55, who were in what I like to call a comfort zone of misery. Actually, that's the subtitle of the book is How to Escape Your Comfort Zone of Misery. And Henry David Thoreau said the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. And I call it a comfort zone of misery, right? Because the quiet desperation can be more dangerous than loud desperation. Because when it's loud, there's been a study of POWs during the Korean conflict, Korean War, whatever, and there were more deaths amongst POWs, but less physical torture. So the chief army medical officer went in there and looked, and it wasn't that they were physically harming them, because what the Koreans knew, they found out that if you punch a POW, they get energy from it. And it gives them something to live for. When I get out of here, I'm coming back and I'm going to kill you. If you just ignore them and take away all hope, it's quiet. They just kind of wither away. So quiet desperation is more dangerous, because you can live in that comfort zone, even if it's miserable, for years. And it's just comfortable enough to put up with the misery. And it's just a life of blah. And, I didn't know this at the time, but those were the people who were coming in as clients at the time. Now, I've changed business models a little bit. And so now I have a more diverse array of people coming in. But at the time, I looked at it after I published the book, and pre-COVID, 7 out of 10 suicides in America are white males, 45 to 54. And I tell people that, and they're shocked. I say, I'm not saying this because I want you to feel bad, feel sorry for white middle-aged men, but people are shocked because of A, who gets the news, but B, well, wait, aren't they the privileged people? So why are they? There's people's expectations that they've been living since they were 15. Oh, I'm living the life that dad wanted me to live when I was 10, or my boss or society. And they get to that area, and it's that comfort zone of misery. Those words speak to them because they're like, yeah, that's me. But when it gets loud, like it did for me, I woke up and I quit my job. I wish I had done it for 8 or 9 years. I had lived in that comfort zone for 8 or 9 years. So that was really in my head and in my mind when I was writing the book.
How many people, well, I guess probably the majority, but I mean, how many people are in that comfort zone of misery, but they think that they're happy? Like, not just that they're like putting up with it, but they actually think like, this is good. I'm in a good place. And then they wake up and say, wait a second, no, I'm not happy.
Yeah, I call them pain unaware, solution unaware, and then sometimes they'll see a video from me and they'll be like, oh, wait, that's not normal. And, I had a recent boot camp and a guy dropped out, and there's a difference between being content and settling. And sometimes people don't know the difference, and they'll be like, listen, I only have to try and make it another 15, 20 years. I'm not happy, but I'm making good money. And they just define their life by their paycheck, but they put on 100 pounds, 150 pounds. Their energy isn't there. The spark in their marriage has gone out. They're not the best father or mother, whatever that they're supposed to be. And yeah, they think, well, I'm happy though, because I'm living the American dream as it was portrayed to me for the last 50 years.
I've got a house in Netflix. What more could you want? Right.
I had a guy, we had met on LinkedIn and chatted in the fall. Nice guy. He lived up in the Pacific Northwest. And he was like, yeah, things are going great here. He's an attorney. Everything's great. And I hear that a lot. Everything's great. And I talked to him. He pinged me. I was watching college football. This was about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I had switched cell phones. So I get this thing. Hey, how you doing? I'm like, I'm doing great. By the way, who is this? And he's like, hey, it's me. Oh, great. I said, well, how you doing? He's like, better than ever. I said, oh, really? What happened? He said, I had the Widowmaker in April. Almost died. Massive heart attack. And he's like, it's the best thing that ever happened to me. Unfortunately, sometimes, and in my book I read about it, is called an infrastructure rattling event for us to realize I'm not happy. My dad died in 2012. That was my infrastructure rattling event, where my dad worked on the space program. I joke around that he was a real life Tony Stark. Worked on the space program, designed all the switches on the Boeing 777, has a patent for that. My brother told me he designed one of the first shoulder fire missiles, did all this cool stuff. And then also the world's first digital sewing machine, all this stuff. At his funeral, at his wake, I'm sitting there and all these grown men are crying. No one mentioned my dad's career. He was the president of the local Notre Dame club. What he did, he read to the blind. He read audiobooks, would go and read a couple times a week, audiobooks for the blind. He would president of the parish council, all these things. And to me, it was a wake up call of who the hell's going to show up at my funeral, But that was in 2012. It still took another 5 years. So even once I realized I wasn't happy, it still was like, well, the money's good, but I'm dying, but the money's good. So I got to go with that until it hit. And people are like, what's the catalyst to change for you? And I said, pain. Many people are more motivated less by the pursuit of happiness than the avoidance of pain, until the pain gets so bad on your comfort zone that then you're like, okay, I got to jump off the cliff. Otherwise this fire's coming at me. So, but to your point, there's a lot of people, I don't know the numbers, but there's probably, I already mentioned some statistics that show, all those people who think they're happy. And next thing you know, it's like, I thought Joe was happy and he took his own life. it's an unfortunate statistic, and I'm sure there's ones beyond that, whether it's divorce, depression, a number of factors that probably portray what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. So how long did it take you to go from conception to publishing your book?
Um, I had it in the back of my head for a while. So I think from officially like, okay, here's what it is. I think it was probably really November, December. And we published it in September. It was ready to go in July, but I didn't want to do anything end of July. Like I didn't want to, July and August, dog days of summer. Let's wait till September. We were going on vacation. So it would have been ready in July, December. I was done writing it in March. So then, the design and the editing and all that good stuff. So yeah, probably December to July-ish. And then another 2 months of just waiting.
Yeah. Yep. And so what have you been doing since to promote the book and get the word out there, get it into the hands of the people who need it?
Yeah, I think, the biggest way, social media, posting, LinkedIn has probably been the biggest way. I'll do podcasts like these and talk about it, especially at the beginning. I did a lot of podcasts over a 6-month period after the release that, with podcasts, it's hard to look in the Amazon numbers to see exact when it goes up. Now a couple times a month, I'll do a Freedom Friday and post it, and I can tell the sales go up. But also it's like I'll go and I did a training in January, or I'm sorry, in April in Texas. And, they bought 50 books as part of that. I'll go and do a speech and they'll buy 100 books as part of my fee. And so that's, that's great when you can do that and sell it in bulk like that. That's just money in the bank and you don't have to do any promotion of it. But really podcasts, LinkedIn is my bread and butter for conversion on anything, quite honestly. At the time, I had a kind of a robust Facebook group too. A lot of people would buy it from in that Facebook group, but I deleted Facebook, and now I came back on Facebook. So I killed off some of that stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious. Earlier today, I was interviewing a guy, James Carberry. He has a book called Content-Based Networking, and it's about involving people in your content as a form of connecting to people that you want to connect with. So you want to talk to somebody, you launch a podcast, and then you invite them to be a guest on your podcast, and that's how you get to talk to them. Did you do anything like that with your book, with the research that you were doing in terms of involving your community or involving people in your content? And did you see benefits from the content before the book even came out that way?
Yeah, I think what I mentioned about my podcast and having guests that were featured in the book. I think I didn't tell them that they were going to be in the book, but what I did was I sent them early copies of the book with notes or a note bookmarking the area where they were mentioned. And they were extremely flattered by it. Some of them actually showed up and bought a bunch of books to give away as whatever. But then they also were the ones who helped promote it and went out there and promoted it for me. And I'm working on my next book or two. I kind of go back and forth on which one I'm going to do. But I had a branding podcast for about a year, and I had some just superstars on there. And I'm like, okay, well, I want to put them in my next book. And these are folks who might sell thousands of books for me because they have big networks, influential networks. So that's how I did it. I probably didn't do it as best, or maybe I didn't even do that intentionally, but I could certainly do a better job.
Yeah, I was just curious. So have you seen results now since the book's been published? What's coming back in terms of feedback?
It's really interesting how there's I'll promote it and I'll put it up there and people will buy it and all that. Starting like late last year, I started getting more and more, and it kind of trickles in here and there, but then now it's even more where people will view my profile on LinkedIn and I'll say, hey, and everyone who views my profile who's within generally my target market, I'll reach out to, and thanks for viewing my profile, let's connect. And they'll connect. I say, hey, anything that piqued your interest to visit? And probably once a week, I just finished your book. I connected with you. Oh, where'd you find my book? And they just found it. They found it on Amazon. I think over the last 2 years, that word freedom, while it has become a triggering mechanism for some, other people want more freedom. They realize they didn't feel free, whatever that means to them. And so they're searching for it, finding the book. And it's funny that didn't happen when I first released it. But as last year went on, I think more people, to me at least, this is anecdotally, were searching for the content in the book. And it's been really amazing when those people come in. I was like, how did you find my book? And they made a positive change from it. And it leads you to believe there's probably a lot more other people out there that did the same, but didn't view my LinkedIn profile or didn't come forward. So.
Cool. Well, Curt, thanks for being with us here today on the Published Author Podcast. If people want to reach out to you, connect with you, learn more about you, where can they find you?
Yeah, the easiest one is I have a blog at curtsblog.com, Curts blog.com. I did that because I have such a long last name. So if you go to curtsblog.com, all the other links to find me, I post regularly there. And that's a great way to get a hold of me.
Perfect. Curt, thanks so much for sharing your journey here today with us on the Published Author Podcast.
Josh, it was my pleasure. And thank you so much for the opportunity to come on.
If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to spread the word, please give us a 5-star rating review and tell your friends to subscribe too. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere else you listen to podcasts. And if you're an entrepreneur interested in writing and publishing a nonfiction book to grow your business and make an impact, visit publishedauthor.com for show notes for this podcast and other free resources.